I call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Elgin City Council on this 4th day of January 2022 at 6:30 p.m. We'll go to roll call. We'll start roll call with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Brasher here.
Ramirez here.
Vega here.
Gibson here.
Callahan here.
Ibis here.
Dennis here.
Let the record show we have a quorum. Councilmember Arriaga and Councilmember Maldonado have excused absences tonight. I'd like to hear a motion to excuse the absence of the two council members.
I so move we excuse them.
Second.
So motion made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Councilmember Ibis. We'll start the vote. Councilmember Dennis, you'll start.
Dennis, yes.
Brasher, yes.
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have the invocation. The invocation this evening will be given by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, hear us. Be with us. Please let us make good, sound decisions. Let us use our knowledge and experience. Let us make good decisions for the city of Elgin and its citizens. Lord, please forgive us of our sins. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, that leads us to the Pledge of Allegiance. You'll please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, welcome everyone. It's nice to see a full house like we have here today. Next on the agenda is the public hearing, but I'm going to move that just a little bit back, and we're going to start with the presentation of the two proclamations that we have. So we'll read the first proclamation, which is the proclamation of 2022 Elgin Sesquicentennial Year. Whereas the city of Elgin was established in 1872 on the Houston and Texas Central Railroad as a 1 square mile area around the H and TC Depot and named for Robert Morris Elgin, the railroad's land commissioner. And whereas in 1879, Elgin was described as a thriving depot town of 400 with a newspaper, a gin, and a grist mill. And whereas today Elgin has a population of 10,598 and is a thriving community with a newspaper, multiple major employers producing bricks, sausage, and more, with significant residential and commercial growth, 2022. And whereas the City Council appointed the Elgin Sesquicentennial Committee to develop a plan for celebrating this historic anniversary of our city. And whereas the Sesquicentennial, through partnerships with organizations and businesses and dedicated volunteer efforts, will recognize our history, record and preserve oral histories, develop an Elgin history book to share our community's unique aspects, and develop existing and new events for the whole community. And whereas an Elgin Founders Day celebration will be held Saturday, August 20th, 2022, and whereas a time capsule will be created and dedicated at a New Year's Eve gala on Saturday, December 31st, 2022, and whereas contests throughout the year will involve our youth in celebrating the sesquicentennial through words and art, and whereas the city of Elgin will be 150 years old in 2022, and the sesquicentennial will celebrate Elgin's history, community, and future. Now, therefore, I, Ron Ramirez, Mayor of the city of Elgin, do hereby proclaim this year, the year of 2022, be known as Elgin Sesquicentennial Year in Elgin, Texas, and call upon the people of Elgin to join their friends and neighbors throughout this community in celebrating the history and the future of our town. Witness whereof where I set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Elgin, Texas to be on this 4th day of January 2022. So, congratulations to us, right? If I can have the two committee chairs of the Elgin Sesquicentennial group up front, please. If you haven't had an opportunity to hear about what these two 30 or 40, which will be 300 and 400 before it's all over. We need volunteers in every area. But these are the heads of the committee, and they're the ones that are responsible for ensuring that we celebrate Elgin all year long. So thank you so much for all your hard work. Okay, the second proclamation. Proclamation Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day Bastrop County Holiday Commission Celebration. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. challenged our nation to recognize that our individual liberty relies upon our common equality, and whereas at a time when our nation was sharply divided, Dr. King called on a generation of Americans to be voices of reason, sanity, and understanding amid the voices of violence, hatred, and emotion. And whereas Dr. King devoted his life to the struggle for justice and equality, sowing seeds of hope for a day when all people might claim the riches of freedom and the security of justice, and whereas on the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday, we commemorate the 36th anniversary of the holiday recognizing one of America's greatest visionary leaders, and we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. And whereas Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech turns 59 in 2022 and reminds us to recognize that in these challenging times, too many Americans face limited opportunities, but our capacity to support each other remains limitless. And whereas we must face the challenges with the same strength, persistence, and determination exhibited by Dr. King, whereas the walk's theme is a day on, not a day off, and whereas the American people are called to engage in public service and promote nonviolent social change so that Dr. King's unfinished movement toward equality can be achieved by our united, enduring efforts. Whereas all citizens are urged to join with Bastrop High School, Smithfield High School, Elgin High School, McDade High School, Cedar Creek High School, and Colorado River Collegiate Academy in supporting the scholarship program during the annual walk. Whereas all citizens are also urged to join in the 33rd annual walk on January 17, 2022 at 10 a.m., beginning at Paul Quinn AME, 1108 Walnut Street, Bastrop, Texas, and will end at the Bastrop Convention Center, 1408 Chestnut Street, Bastrop, Texas, for universal peace, justice, human rights, and social and economic progress for all people. Now, therefore, I, Ron Ramirez, Mayor of the City of Elgin, Texas, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 17th, 2022 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of Elgin, Texas to be affixed on this 4th day of January 2022. So congratulations again. If I can get members of the Martin Luther King Committee. I'm sure everyone is aware that this is a very active committee here, and they make sure that we celebrate the holiday the correct way. And last year was an eye-opening experience for me because we did it all via computer, basically, because we couldn't meet in person. So I'm very much looking forward to this year, to the walk and the celebration afterwards. So congratulations and thank you, Betty, for everything. Only if you want to.
I'd just like to invite everybody out, come out and join the walk, and just come out and join.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all may have to excuse me a little bit tonight. The allergies are really getting to me, so if you see me crying up here, it's not that I'm sad about something. It's probably the cedar. So, okay, let's go back now to the public hearing. Public hearing on an ordinance annexing adjacent and contiguous territory to the city of Elgin, Texas, to wit, 36.921 acres of land lying in and being situated out of the William Hines Survey, number 53, in Travis County, Texas, including adjacent right-of-way and being fully described in Exhibit A attached here to, providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Do we have anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing, in this public hearing? Okay, if that's the case, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is public comments. I would like to remind everyone, the speakers under public comments have 3 minutes. Speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than to an individual council member or member of staff. All speakers must limit their comments to the specific subject matter noted on the public comment form and refrain from personal attacks or derogatory comments directed at any council member, member of staff, other individual, or group. So, first public comment is Levi Barrigan? Bannigan, I'm sorry, Levi Bannigan.
You have to excuse me, the seat has been getting me down the last few days too, so I may not be as clear as I normally am. So I came tonight in regards to, I think it's item number 6 is the boards and commissions. I know I've been in some communication with the city and my council members in Ward 3. I've kind of a long time interest in one in particular, and I wanted to share a concern and also a little bit about myself and trying to offer some solutions and be a part of that advisory committee. And the one that I'm specifically talking about is the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And I'm going to first share why I'm a little bit concerned. I moved here in February of 2019. My wife grew up here. We decided to put our roots down. And then COVID came about a year after that. And through following, the developments of the city, through COVID and, the events beforehand, when I go and I look for like the agenda minutes and things of that sort with the Public Safety Advisory Committee, I don't see a lot of minutes or meetings or communications from that committee. And that was a point of concern that I had brought up even before COVID. I had exchanged some emails with the previous city secretary. And so that did kind of concern me that there wasn't a lot of public visibility of what goes on with that group, and something that I'm very interested in. What I want to see with not just the Public Safety Advisory Committee, but maybe some of our other boards and commissions that maybe don't have as much public exposure as some of the more popular things. Like, of course, everybody's talking about Whataburger, opened up yesterday. Not quite everybody talks about some of the other things that go on in the town. And of course, with the culture of the country changes, things that go on with COVID, I know that perhaps there was some digital meetings and maybe some changes. I'm sure maybe that there was a reason that there wasn't a lot of meetings. Maybe there's something I don't know about. It's entirely possible, but I would like to see more community engagement from all of our boards and commissions. I see stuff from the economic development group. I see stuff from the planning and zoning and the downtown Elgin. Some of them not quite as much. And I do have some pretty good ideas with the public safety aspect. And it's something that I have a lot of experience and background in. I'm actually wearing my work shirt. I just came right from my site. I'm an account manager with Allied Universal Security Services. I run a security crew of supervisors and guards for an Amazon fulfillment center in Pflugerville. And before that, I spent about 8 years in the IT industry, and before that, I was active duty military. So I have a lot of background in the security and loss prevention kind of space, in addition to some other skill sets as well. And I've got some ideas that I'd like to bring. And I took a look on the documents for those looking to be reappointed, those who have made applications. And the final point I want to make, I'm sure I'm running out of time, is I noticed that every single member of the current Public Safety Advisory Committee is looking to be reappointed. To my understanding, those members have been on the committee for some time, and I would hope that the council is going to consider as we come out of COVID and maybe have more meetings and engagement, we kind of activate some fresh ideas and some new faces onto these boards. That's not bashing anybody. I don't know any of these people. I'm not sure entirely what has been going on with COVID with that. I just see an opportunity for improvement, and I think that myself and a lot of other professionals in the community could have a lot to add. That's all I got.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, next public comment, Stephanie Lipke.
Good evening. Is it on? Okay, I'm going to talk about the wastewater treatment winterization, wastewater and water plant winterization. Y'all took out and received 1.5 million in CO bond money to be preemptive in winterizing both those plants. And the movement we've seen in 8 months, going on 9 months, is the purchase of a portable generator, which is great, but are we going to just be running that in the ice between two plants, trying to keep these things on board? With Senate Bill 3, the mandate by the legislature is on y'all now to do it, and we're behind the 8 ball when we could have been way in front of this. And it's not just winter. Texas is a storm state. It could be a hurricane, it could be a tornado, it could be a flood. We never know what's coming, but we need to be more prepared. And when we approve that money, when y'all approve that money, then that money needs to be used, and it needs to be used in an efficient and quick manner instead of waiting to see how things play out with grants and such. So that's all I'm saying is when you have the money, let's use it to the benefit of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, our last public comment is Joy Kesnowski.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council. So kind of similar to the previous gentleman, I wanted to talk a little bit about the boards and commissions, and I've attempted to be on boards and commissions twice now and to no avail. I think the previous way that the city has operated the boards and commissions is people have, to the gentleman's point, wanted to be reappointed and such. But I think that was also before Elgin has experienced a lot of growth and folks wanting to get involved. And it's my understanding that a lot of people have submitted applications. The city posted multiple times on its social media channels asking for applications. And then the response that I've gotten back is, well, there's only 2 vacancies. And so that's really disappointing, especially when you want to capitalize on people's engagement with the city and to serve. So I think I'm just here to reiterate, I've reached out to my council folks to, reform this process, I think, for the better and for the times that we're in now. And I can understand that if there's nobody who wants to serve, you're asking folks, please stay on this board or commission. But with all the folks that want to be on these, boards or commissions, and if you keep not being allowed to because they say that the seats are filled, then at some point you become apathetic. And then also, I know folks who are either on the boards or city staff ask me directly, hey, we have vacancies, will you apply? And then again, the communication back is we don't have vacancies. So anyways, I would just love to see some updated processes, perhaps some term limits, even saying, if you don't have excused absences for these boards and commissions, you're going to be asked to, give up your seat and have somebody else who wants to join and put the work in for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all three for the public comments there. Moving on in our agenda, next we have the city manager's report, and we'll start with an update on the 2021 Certificates of Obligation Capital Investment Program.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give council a quick update on where we stand on the CO projects that we finally got funded through last year. As council knows, we spent most of the last year getting our financing together. Well, we actually spent the entire year getting our financing together that would allow us to move forward with a number of projects, all of which we could not afford any other way than through the issuance of debt. but also all of those that we were precluded from moving forward on until we had the proper funding in place. So I just want to give you, but we're making great progress on essentially every project that we've talked about. I'm really pleased with how our progress is moving forward very quickly. Typically, when cities issue debt and start a capital improvement program like this, it takes years to implement and do all the projects. But these are all the projects we've named are underway and in design or in development. So just a quick update on well number 10 will be completed by the year end. We're into engineering design, and when we anticipate full construction by end of the calendar year 2022. Our FM11 water main is subject to our Aqua Water Supply Corporation acquisition agreement that will probably be on the agenda at our next meeting, maybe, for council to approve. The refurbishing of the storage tanks, council knows they approved that at our last meeting and awarded the bid. That work is projected to start this week and will be completed by summertime. And that's to refurbish and repaint all 3 of our major water storage tanks and not only move us forward from where we should have been on regular maintenance, but put us way ahead. The weatherization of the water treatment plant is another big project that was mistakenly referred to earlier. This funding is exclusively for the water treatment plant, not the wastewater plant. As council knows, we already had a generator. We've always had an emergency generator at the wastewater plant, and that's frankly what saved us last year of not having a wastewater treatment problem. But we continue to work on the engineering and design for the main generator at the water treatment plant. We anticipate that coming before council by the end of this month. I'm sorry, we continue to work on the main generator. At the next meeting, we anticipate I'm sorry, I got that wrong again. The bid award is tonight for the smaller portable generator. It's smaller, but obviously a major generator that will enable us to have ability to make quick connections to all our lift stations and all our interior pumps in town and provide a backup power source for all of them. This is actually a project that well, I'll talk a little bit about later, but we've moved forward as quickly as possible as we could with this project. We didn't receive the proceeds for the CO until July this year. There were delays, unnecessary delays in the funding of this project at the beginning of the year. We were ready to move forward then. We'd be in a better position now to move forward with this project had we been able to start earlier, but because we couldn't start till July, the planning and bidding took place through the last 6 months, and now we're ready to award that bid tonight. The quick connections will be awarded in February, so we're excited about moving forward on both of those. But both of these projects, the winterization of the plant, we've never said that we would ever be ready for these new major installations to be done for this wintertime. That's not a reasonable possibility, and anybody that thinks we could have gotten that done in between now and then is not working from the facts or a position of reality. But we're excited about it. We'll be in great position by this time next year to address any other, to provide any other backup power needs both at the water plant and throughout our system in town. The Pistol Hill Water Tank project is a $5 million grant project that will kick off just this week. We got the contract from the GLO, and we'll be moving forward with that. Initial planning this week. The wastewater treatment plant expansion continues and along the lines that we had projected, and we still anticipate that major project being done and by first quarter next year, 23. The Harvest Ridge upsizing project is already completed. The lift station on 1704 is 99% complete. We have final punch list items. Elm Creek lift station is already completed. And the Carver Street lift station project is also one that we anticipate receiving a major grant for. But given the grant system, we're waiting until we hear about that grant before we proceed with that project. County Line Road widening, we anticipate the project bid going out at the end of this month to do the Phase 1 road widening project. Our 2 sidewalk projects, again, these funds are matching funds. We'll receive over $1 million worth of grant funds to fund both of these projects, so we're tied to the grant system to follow their schedule, and so we've been delayed a little bit, but we anticipate the project bid for the downtown sidewalks this month and construction to begin in March. On the other project, the plans are 90% complete, but we have to wait for TxDOT review, and we're hoping to start those that project in the first quarter of this year. Memorial Park restrooms are the same thing. The bid documents and plans are being finalized. Hope to start construction again in the first quarter here. Thomas Park improvements, we've received input from the Parks Board and have engaged our consultant on that, and they're developing final concept plans to hope to have the engineering start this month as well. Veterans Park also has received input from the staff and the Parks Board, and the initial concept plan is under development by our consultant. Bids for an architect for the new police station are due this week, and we'll be running those through our building committee and bring those back to council, hopefully by the 1st of February, after the committee has had a chance to review those and make a recommendation. The demolition of the small building next to the police station will occur simultaneous with the reconstruction, refurbishment of the Poth building on the corner, which is not a CO project, and we anticipate that project also beginning in the first quarter. And then the ECD road improvements out at our business park, the concept plan for that is complete. We'll be having an engineering proposal for council to consider after the EDC board reviews that at our next meeting. So as you can see, every one of the projects that we've talked about for the last year are actively in development and construction. We're really excited about it. We still believe our goal to get essentially all these projects done in the 22 calendar year is a reality, and we'll keep moving forward, and we'll make these periodic reports to council as to the status of each project. We're always available for questions about any of those. So that's all. That's all I had on that, unless anybody had any questions for me.
Council, do you have any questions or comments? One of the things that I think is really important that we realize is when we had the winter freeze last year, that was something that Texas hadn't really faced to that extent in many, many years. And so a lot of cities, including Elgin, but a lot of cities were caught unprepared. And so we as a council made the decision that we're going to do what we can do to make sure that if it ever happens again, we are better prepared. We can't ever say that we're always going to be prepared for whatever happens. We're going to be better prepared than what we were. And so we as a council made that decision. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is a generator, for instance, for the size of our water treatment plant, that's not something you can buy at Lowe's and go plug in. That's a giant generator that has to be built custom for our water treatment plant. And there's every city in Texas is asking for basically the same type of systems for their treatment plants. So it's not something that we can just say, well, we want it and it'll be ready in 60 days or 90 days or whatever. It has to be built, and there's a limited number of places in the country that can build a generator that big. So I mean, we have to be realistic, and certainly it would be nice to say, well, you know, we have it for this winter. Well, we don't have it for this winter, but we'll have it for the winters from this point forward after this winter. And that's just the way it is. It's just with everyone asking for the same kind of systems, we fall into a line, and ours will be built, and it's going to be a big one. It's going to cost $1 million something. But we're going to, you know, the next time, or if it ever happens again, we're going to be in a much better position than what we were.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said. I would just say that every city, every governmental entity got caught off guard and was not prepared for what we went through last year. And I think by the end, after the situation was reviewed, it was clear that the city of Elgin had as good a response as any other city in our area. And we're continuing to do that with this. As the mayor said, this isn't something, many of these other projects we're talking about here, we're almost compelled to do. The winterization of the water plant, the way the mayor described it, is the council is committed to going over and above what we're really required to do. We're not really required under the new state law to build this giant generator, but we're committed to doing that. So we're going to get to it as quick as we can, but the items the mayor pointed out are just the realistic parts of where we're at in the business climate today. So with that, that's pretty much all I had on my report, except I was going to have Amy step up here and give council a quick briefing on numbers on where we stand with our engagement and response to COVID. We're obviously trying to do everything we can as a city to help support acquisition and distribution of tests and testing and vaccinations. And Amy's got a few numbers to share with you today.
So last week, through a partnership with COVAC Ops and the Bastrop County Office of Emergency Management, there were test kits distributed in Elgin. Am I? Okay, thanks, Michael. And so those were distributed at multiple locations in the community. It was coordinated by COVAC Ops, and the totals were that at the Fleming Community Center, 2,300 COVID-19 test kits were distributed. And then at the other locations in the community, they had some that were open in the morning and also in the afternoon. There were 1,000 distributed. So that was all on December 30th of the past year of 2021. And then we've had vaccine clinics throughout most of last year, some very large at the beginning of the year when things were first rolling out. And then as the year continued on, again, through a partnership with COVAC Ops, we have been able to host vaccine clinics here in the community. In addition to, obviously, there's resources now. It's much more available at the local pharmacies and so on. But the city has been hosting clinics to, again, bring more accessibility. The school district has been hosting clinics. And we're working with COVAC Ops to determine a schedule for 2022. And we are also working with COVAC Ops and a private entity with Bastrop County Office of Emergency Management to try to have a COVID testing trailer in the community. But that is in the works on their side. So we encourage everyone to take all the precautions that you can and that you feel are appropriate for you and your family, and to wear your face coverings as much as possible. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. Just to clarify what I said earlier, the city itself is not directly involved in obtaining tests or.
No.
But our role is we're trying our best to share information and provide locations, as we've done at the Fleming and talked about the rec center, and wherever we can, where we've been asked to provide opportunities for these folks to set up, we've done that.
Yes, absolutely. And the Fleming location and other kind of neutral locations that are easy to get to in the community have been very successful. The school district clinics have been very successful too. So the community is responding really well to having more access, and we've been helpful in providing a point of connection.
Hold on just a second, Amy. Council, do y'all have any questions or comments for Amy on this? So we've obviously have seen a large spike in COVID cases. Is that correct? That's the email I got today, that Bastrop County has seen a large spike in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes, as most communities have because of holiday activities.
Yes, all around Texas and probably the nation. Yeah. And the I know you just talked about it, but the Fleming clinics are still, we don't know when they're going to start or if they're going to start again. Is that correct?
Right. So COVAC Ops is the entity that provides those vaccinations, and they are working not just in Elgin or in Bastrop County, but they have a large service area. And so they're determining what their schedule is going to be for 2022.
Okay.
And we're providing the support to help find a place in Elgin to be able to do that.
And we've reached out to them to encourage them to come to Elgin, and we'll support them, but it's really their call, so. So I guess I'd say that, Mayor, I know everybody's interested in this topic, but truthfully, Amy's just told everything we know about it right now, right? We're doing our part, and we're supporting the county's efforts as much as we can, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I had, Mayor, for the manager's report, unless anybody had any questions for me on items not on the agenda.
Council members, do you have any questions for the city manager? If not, we'll move on. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes non-controversial and routine items that are considered to be self-explanatory by the city council. Will be enacted with one motion, 1 second, and 1 vote. Any member of the city council may pull any item from the consent agenda in order that the city council discuss and act upon it individually as part of the regular agenda. There's 5 items listed under the consent agenda. Council members, I'm sure you've had a chance to look at these. I personally want to pull item number 5 out to have just a little discussion on. The other 4 items, anybody have anything that they want to talk about, or shall we move on with a motion and vote?
I'll make a motion to approve the first 4 items on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Ibis to approve the first 4 items listed on the consent agenda. We'll start the vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. And under new business, the first item Mr. Mattis, the first item I want to discuss is item number 5
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
under the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This resolution is again, as council's done numerous times, it specifically is just relative to authorizing the submission of a grant application to Department of Commerce by the Economic Development Corporation. As you know, our big projects out here are getting the continuation of our roads built to through our business park that can accommodate new businesses we have coming in here. And basically, what this grant is about is that we have from the COs enough money we've talked about before. This is the diagram for where our roads will be. We'll build this road down to the railroad tracks, and then we'll essentially build this road. We'll build as far as we can as the money allows us to do. But the master plan obviously contemplates this cul-de-sac and then heading this road back out towards 290. So what this grant application is about, it's a $1 million grant application that requires a 100% match. Well, it's a $2 million grant, a 50% match. Basically, it's a $1 million grant where we would have to match it by $1 million. But because we issued the COs last month, and that money is now available to the EDC, they can utilize the CO money to provide the matching funds for this grant application. Whereas if we had not issued the COs and created those funds for the EDC, we wouldn't have been able to file this grant application to possibly secure a grant. So basically, it's an opportunity for us to kind of double our money out there and hopefully help us reach further into the development of this property and to complete this roadway. So again, this action tonight is simply to authorize the application, but we wanted to run through how that's basically going to work.
Okay, that's a good explanation. Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on that? You all hear a motion to pass?
I so move, Mayor.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher to approve item number 5 under the consent agenda. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Okay, going on to new business. Item number 1 under new business, an ordinance annexing, okay, an ordinance annexing adjacent and contiguous territory on the city of Elgin, Texas, to wit 36.921 acres of land lying in and being situated out of the William Hines Survey, number 53 in Travis County, Texas, including adjacent right-of-way and being fully described in Exhibit A attached hereto, providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Mattis?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the item that where the public hearing was on earlier. This particular piece of property has been requested for annexation by the property owner. If you can kind of get your bearings of where this is, you know, you've seen this map plenty of times before to show all our development, but this piece is this little triangle out here where my circle is, and it meets up to where basically kind of comes close to touching Elm Creek, the second Elm Creek to the east or north, and Brixton to the west. Elm Creek North, that's right. So it's property plan for development. The owner has submitted a planned development district zoning request. Basically, the staff has discussed with them that, and they've agreed that they'll basically request commercial zoning for all the frontage here along 290, and then this area in the back will have single-family homes. So it's a pretty straightforward situation, and obviously, as we continue to grow, the more commercial property we can get zoned along the 290 corridor, the better.
Do we have any questions or comments on that?
And it's a BDD?
This action tonight is just to annex. They've submitted a PDD request. That'll come back to council in the next couple months.
Yes, Thomas?
Yeah, but we don't have what the plans are as far as, you know, homes versus commercial or,
We'll get that in the PDD.
okay.
That, by going to a planned development district zoning, as you know, they'll be very specific about exactly how that'll look. So, again, the action tonight is just to bring in the land. It automatically comes in as a routine single family, but that's not how the developer wants to use it. So the planned development
So it'll
district
come back to council to
it'll come back to
change.
council to do the zoning.
Thank you.
Good
And,
question,
and
good
part of
question,
the
Thomas.
zoning will have the development plan that'll give you those details.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else, council? If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Ibis, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher to approve item number 1 under new business as read and discussed. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Ibis.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Let's move on to item number 2 under new business. An ordinance assigning newly annexed property and adjacent right-of-way to City Council Ward Area Number 2, providing for a severability clause and providing an effective date, providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances or resolutions.
This item is a routine matter. After all annexations, we need to assign that property to a council ward. As you can see here, this better depicts that tract. It's actually kind of off the map a little bit on our ward map. So this tract that we've just annexed will actually represent the furthest most point west of the city limits. But obviously in that location right now, adding it to Ward 2 seems to be the obvious choice. I'll just say that we've discussed this about every time we discuss the wards, that the realignment of the wards is probably in the city's future, somewhat near future, but right now, assigning this to Ward 2, this property seems only logical.
Mr. Mattis, is it because the Ward 2 members are not here today that we're giving it to them?
That's, you caught me.
All right. That pretty much makes sense. So do we have any questions or comments on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as read.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Ibis to approve item number 2 under new business as read. We'll start the vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Okay. Item number 3 under new business. A resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the city manager to award a bid for the portable generator project to Altera Power Systems of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and making certain findings related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that we've discussed a little bit previously, that is part of the funding that came out of our COs we issued last year, and is to award a bid to acquire our portable generator. I always feel like saying portable sounds like the generator you buy at Cabela's or something, but we have this sheet from our page from our capital improvement plan shows an idea what the generator will look like. The smaller one there to the right, and of course the other one's the major one that will be constructed, as the mayor described, for the water treatment plant. This project, again, as soon as we received the funds from the CO, we began work on this project. The design and engineering has taken place since July, design, engineering, and bidding. And we bid the project out and feel like we've got a really good bid. This whole part of the project, as you recall, to acquire the portable generator and to do the quick connections throughout the town to our various locations for water and sewer pump stations was all budgeted at $500,000, $500,000. So we're confident we're going to hit that number all in on this project, including engineering. The good news is that we got a really good bid on the generator that was lower priced than we anticipated. The kind of bad news is that we figured out in the process this generator is so big that we currently don't have a truck that we can haul it around in with. So, but fortunately, because we got such a good bid on the generator itself, we'll be able to acquire a new truck that'll be utilized to appropriately drive this thing around town and still hit the budget number of $500,000 for the whole project. So we feel really good about this. As the mayor said earlier too, neither one of these generators are on a used car lot someplace where you can just go buy one. They're literally like a fire truck or a major piece of equipment that they don't start building them until you have a contract and you have the design and engineering done. So we're also at a time where not only normal supply chain issues would challenge the city moving forward with this, but as was also said earlier, virtually every governmental entity in Central Texas is now trying to acquire generators like this. So it's a tough market situation, but we think that 4 to 6 months should provide enough time for delivery of this unit, and we'll have it by summertime. So.
That's a very nice time frame. Since all of our generators at my work are 52 weeks out.
Oh, well. Good. Well, we're hopeful. That's the commitment they've made in the bid, and hopefully we can get that done. So.
We have any other questions or comments, council? Do I hear a motion to pass item number 3 under new business?
So moved.
Hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Ibis, seconded by Councilmember Dennis to approve item number 3 as read. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Ibis.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council.
Mayor, I guess I forgot to say for the record, the bid itself is $127,969.
Yeah.
It's in the resolution.
It's in the resolution, I
But
saw it, yeah.
I didn't say it out loud.
Okay. Item number 4, an ordinance amending Chapter 44 Vegetation, Article 1 in General Division 3, General Requirements and Standards, and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances for resolutions.
Mayor, this item was on the agenda our last time, if you remember. David, we thought he was coming down with the COVID last time, so he wasn't able to be here. So we tabled this ordinance until he could be here and answer any questions council might have about it. But this is an ordinance that was reviewed and a couple times by the Plan Commission, right?
It was reviewed twice by them on the second go-around. They recommended approval of it.
Okay, they had also made some initial changes, but essentially the primary elements to it is that we've experienced with some of our new construction and the new developments, and a couple of our new developments where we're already seeing vegetation die, and so the idea here was to require irrigation systems in the front yard that would hopefully stop that from or help that from reoccurring in the future. It's a fairly standard requirement by many cities, and it's a standard that is utilized by a couple of our big developers now on their own, but there's a couple that aren't doing it. So we discussed this with the Plan Commission. They recommended approval of it, and so it's before council for y'all's consideration.
Okay, council, I'll open it up, and if we have any questions or comments for the city manager or for David while he's up there?
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm going to come back around again because I was the one that squawked the last time.
yes, ma'am.
We already have procedures for commercial, right?
Correct.
It's up to them to do that. So
Yes.
why can we not make it where the developers are responsible for this too, and not force it on a home buyer where they have to do it? And to be honest, I understand you don't want the vegetation that's being planted to die, but a lot of these houses are being sold in blocks, and they're being rented. And so if it's a rental property, those people aren't going to turn those things on, whether they have it or not. So then, do you force a leak situation because they're not going to maintain them with the homeowner? So, and I almost get the feeling that we're trying to turn into an HOA-ish. And you know, I stated all this last time too. If commercial, we already have it as a documented process, why can't we make it and put it on the developer here and not the homeowner?
Well, I think it essentially, I guess technically speaking, it would be on the builder.
Correct.
Now, what the ordinance says is any newly platted property, this would apply to, not to any property already platted, right?
Correct.
So that would be, frankly, there'd be minimal opportunities, I think, in the older part of town for somebody to want to build one house and this requirement apply to them, because that lot would probably already be platted.
And this was brought up in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, how to apply it. And that second meeting, we made the determination is if it's going to be a small plat, so if they're going to do, they have a big lot and they want to subdivide 4 or less lots off that, they don't have to, they can still do above ground watering. They're not required to do irrigation. It's for the bigger lots, and it would be the bigger lots that are subdivided, preliminary and final platting, that sort of thing, that would be applicable to. So we didn't want to hit the more established parts of town with, oh, well, you subdivided your lot, now you've got to do underground irrigation standards. You can't above ground water it. So that was brought up in the commission. That's why they made the change, and that's been brought forward as part of their recommendation, as your code states, as the code change looks now.
Yeah, but I would just say in the end, your basic point is right. Even making this on 2 points. Number one, a developer's not going to eat the cost for this. Even in the new developments, they're going to pass that cost on to the home buyer. And two, this requirement doesn't guarantee that people are going to turn on the sprinklers. And So, I mean, those are valid points.
So then I have to say, what are we trying to prove? I get it, I do. You're trying to keep, so is there not a way where we can look down the avenue of where it's the developer? You gotta keep this stuff alive for 2 years regardless, and at 2 years, can you say, all right, 70% is still alive, you're good, and it's still on the developer and not on the homeowner?
Well, I don't know the full legal background of everything, but usually when a builder builds these homes, they put these things in and turn it over to the homeowner. So I think that would be cumbersome insofar as having the builder guaranteeing and having to go back and enforce that on the builder. The owner's the owner of the property, and it's always understood the owner of the property, the owner of that property has to maintain their landscaping. So I think the easiest thing in regards to that would be to have the standards the way they're written here. Now, bear in mind Saratoga Farms, Braun Homes, that area is the newer, what I call the oldest new development here. Most of the homes in that development have the underground irrigation system. Their landscaping's thriving in that area. We've just been having issues with areas of the town that are not putting this in, and the landscaping's passing, so to speak. So that's kind of what these code changes are focused on. But certainly what you bring up is a valid point. But and in talking with the Planning and Zoning Commission, we felt the best way to address it is to require it by this standard.
So do we have any idea what this is adding to the building cost? I mean, it's not $200. I mean,
It's probably not, but we have builders in town, just like Braun Homes for the Saratoga Farms project, and then Peppergrass for D.R. Horton, that are putting these things in. It's not stopping the building of any houses, certainly.
but that's not the answer to my question,
Okay.
because we know that these builders that are not using them currently are going to add the cost into the price of future homes. And so what is that going to do to increase the cost of the home? We have so many things that we're regulating into these houses that, and with, lumber's getting better, but, added cost of lumber is getting added back to the buyer and those sort of things. And people who are first home buyers, which many of these people are, the add-on is pricing them out of the market. So how do we deal with that? And why couldn't this be an amenity rather than a requirement?
Well, it already is an amenity because some of the builders are adding them into it.
That's right.
People are
And
paying
so,
that. So, and
it's like Sue has said, if they can't afford to add it into the cost. If they have to add it into the cost, then they're still in that price point where they can't afford to run the water. And so they're gonna choose not to. And so
I would guess $2,000-3,000 probably.
Yeah.
I've looked at it, but it's a $250,000 home you're buying.
you're right.
Okay, if we say.
So Councilmember Vega has a comment.
You can't speak it.
Councilmember Vega has a
I
comment.
just had a question. If back on the property owner, what does enforcement look like by the city?
I'm sorry?
If the property owner is responsible for upkeep and maintaining the irrigation, what does enforcement look like?
We don't actively go out and pursue irrigation-related issues insofar as being proactive on them. We've never even received a complaint on irrigation. So, I mean, it would be a rare circumstance we would ever receive a complaint on that. So
Well,
it's
wait
a
a minute,
situation that's rare.
David, I think the short answer is we wouldn't do that.
Right.
The requirement is to put the system in, and that would be done at building permit. We'd assure that, but beyond that, there wouldn't be any enforcement.
But,
Right.
but as Councilmember Vega said, are we then kind of setting us a precedent because we're saying you have to have it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
would-
Look,
yeah.
I would just say all these things are about, we're trying to set the right standard. These are homes that are going to exist in the city for 30, 40 years. And we have everything we do this way. We have to have an opportunity now to kind of get ahead of the curve before that standard gets set. So it's just a conversation about where that bar is and where we want to set it. So again, I would say this, just to be clear. There's nothing imperative about this from the staff standpoint. We're not in violation of some rule if we don't do it. This is simply an idea that came through the system and is for council. So I think it's a valid, it's motivated by a valid concern, but where that bar exactly sits, that's what y'all get paid the big bucks for up here.
Yeah.
I would just add too, that it almost seems like if no follow-up, then it's not really complete. Or if no enforcement, there is no follow-up, therefore it doesn't seem complete. It's like, well, what would be the point? And I understand the point, no doubt, but if there's not a second part to that, once it's installed, then how do you ensure that it's utilized so that everything is upkept and irrigated, I guess? And if there is no type of enforcement, whether it's us or anyone else, I really don't understand the point.
Well, Council, I ask you to think, is this something that we want to be involved with? Is this something that we need to do? Is this something that we need to regulate? Or is this something that every homeowner is going to have to work out basically, themselves? So if the question is, when you ask yourself, is it something that the city council needs to be, it's almost like what Mayor Pro Tem Brasher said, are we the HOA all of a sudden? And in many ways we are. There's no doubt. We put enough ordinances, enough regulations that in many ways we are. The question is, do we want to do this? Do we want to regulate how often somebody waters their yard, basically?
Yeah, just to follow that point up, I don't think we can. I don't think there's a way for us to regulate on that point.
And that would be
This
the
is
only way
not-
that this would be successful, is if we were
could
able to
require
do that.
them to
And
do it.
I just don't see a.
I think there's another factor here as well, because if these builders are hiring out-of-city contractors to do most of the rest of their contracting, that they're actually going to get somebody out of the city to do the contract. We have people in town that do irrigation systems, and we're pricing them out of it because we don't even give them the opportunity, because the builders are coming in and doing it en masse. And so, I don't know, our local enterprise needs to be supported.
Now, the other thing I just thought of too is, thinking about HOAs for these newer subdivisions. If they already have established HOAs, I guess those are the folks that would enforce any kind of irrigation that would be part of just their entire HOA. And
Right.
again, removing the city, but working with the HOAs to ensure that they are enforcing those rules.
And David and Tom, I don't know, these new developments out there, do they have HOAs
They're supposed
as
to,
a
yes.
general rule?
Yes.
Yeah, all of them do.
But a lot of the times, the developer doesn't turn those over to the citizens the developer a lot of times is the HOA for a period of time until that development is built out. Then they turn it over to the citizens, and that becomes an elected, or a board that's elected, that sort of thing for that development.
Yeah,
So,
every
yes.
one of the new developments has an HOA.
And so if that's the case, then until they build it out, they have to keep all their stuff live. And then after that,
No, they wouldn't.
What are we thinking, Council? Councilmember Gibson, do you have anything you want to add to it?
No, I'm still with, like how Sue said, how are we gonna enforce it? And it seems like, and how Ms. Baker said as well, is if there's no second piece of that, what's the point of the ordinance in the first place if we're not gonna have a way of enforcing?
and I'm absolutely 100% against us, the city, going out enforcing whether you're watering your lawn.
Mr. Mayor, if I could suggest, some situations, it might be appropriate for council to send this back to the planning commission to reconsider, but it sounds like it's the core issue that we're on different pages. So I think if the council just votes down the ordinance, then it's a question asked and answered, and we'll move on.
Council, do we have any more thoughts on this before we decide to either vote for the motion or vote against the motion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to not approve the ordinance amending Chapter 44 of vegetation.
Okay,
Second.
so a motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher and seconded by Councilmember Ibis to not approve item number 4 under new business, an ordinance amending Chapter 44 vegetation article in General Division 3 General Requirements and Standards and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances or resolutions. Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, you'll start the vote.
Brazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes?
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
See,
Council.
had to think whether you're saying yes or
I
no.
know.
Motion fails, you.
Trying to trick you.
I'm busy crying over here, so.
No.
Item number 5, under new business, an ordinance amending Chapter 8 Business Revised Code of Ordinances, City of Elgin, Texas, deleting in their entirety Section 8.156 and adding Sections 8-157.107 through 8-157.110, repealing all other ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for a savings clause.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another item that's been tabled a couple times by council, waiting to, or seeking out a little more information about it. So we've made a little bit different presentation tonight that Jennifer's going to help lead us on. And this is basically to change the ordinance to update and bring it more in line with current practice as it relates to solicitors and peddlers and itinerant vendors. As we've talked about before, like most cities, Elgin's code is, this part of the code is somewhat dated and goes back to a time where door-to-door salespeople were a fairly common concern, and basically nobody had ever heard of food trucks before. And now, as society's evolved, we're seeing less and less door-to-door salespeople or solicitors, but a lot more food trucks. And so we're trying to update our code to reflect that. And also, our code was a little bit outdated in the sense that we had 3 different departments, the city secretary's office, the development services, and the police department, all involved in issuing permits and reviewing applications, and that had become a really complicated and confusing situation, I think, for applicants and businesses trying to get started. So it's with that in mind that we went through the code, and the staff, Jennifer, David, and Chief Noble got together and have consolidated their input, and now we think we have a plan where we can streamline the process for those applicants, and in the process also update the code as we need to. So with that, Jennifer's going to kind of walk us through a little presentation here.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. So I just kind of wanted to go over the ordinance and the updates and just a little bit about each item. So first, I just wanted to say, when I was first given this responsibility, it was really difficult and confusing for me to understand. I'd never done this before, never really heard of city secretaries doing this part. So with that, I learned from Amelia in the couple days I had with her, and we're here now. So I'm just going to kind of go over definitions and the requirements for each, and then talk about the changes and what we hope to accomplish with this amendment. So itinerant vendor is basically anyone who displays, sells, or offers for sale any commodity, pretty much a food truck. So I'm sure you've seen them around town, and doesn't include like lemonade stands or charitable type organizations. It's just someone who's trying to sell a good or service to the citizens of Elgin. So the requirements of an itinerant vendor is a complete public safety criminal history, which is kind of where the police department fell in, And they must submit an application for, provide driver's license, permits, and then insurance on the vehicles. So it's pretty much basic information. And then the solicitors and peddlers. Peddlers, any person who engages in commercial activities within the city limits, basically a door-to-door salesman. We don't really see those as much. We're more dealing with the food truck type vendors, but we do have this permit. I've seen a few with like cell phone providers. That's like the only one that I've seen that has gotten a permit from me. And then of course a solicitor is someone who goes door to door, pretty similar to a peddler. And on this one, it also doesn't include distributing nonprofit pamphlets, fundraising activities, and Girl Scout cookies. Leave them alone. So a requirement for that permit is to submit a $25 application fee, fill out an application. Same process for the other. We want to make sure that their criminal record is clean and have a driver's license and things like that. Pretty basic information. So David kind of came up with a little bit more, pretty much just a few basic additions to the ordinance. The hours of operations are going to change a little bit based on whether lighting exists on that private property. And then, of course, we want to make sure that the property owner has given permission to that solicitor that they can solicit services. And then adds minimum standards such as trash cans, water systems, and sinks. We don't want someone selling tacos to not have clean water to wash their hands before they assemble the food and whatnot. So, and then, of course, require vehicle insurance. Cars aren't allowed to be blocked in the parking lots, pedestrian access, fire lanes. So it's not really much, but just David looked at what other cities are doing, and this is kind of what are a part of their process. So to continue, it allows the city to verify sales tax. We want to make sure that they're actually paying their sales tax. That seems pretty basic. Set standards that are already on our application, such as age. Want to make sure they're able to operate a vehicle, and then of course criminal history. Require sales tax again. Food handler licenses and health permits. We want to make sure that they're able to legally sell food and do it in a healthy way. And then lastly, vendors must follow city-adopted electric, plumbing, fuel, and gas requirements. Add standards for vendors on private property to provide site plans. And then adds failure to collect and resubmit sales tax back to the city due to criminal activity or failure to display the permit.
Jennifer, I just want to jump in here and say one thing, or David, most of these items you've gone over here that are on the red slides are things we're essentially requiring now already, and but we're getting from all the permittees, and we're asking for that information. This amendment to the ordinance simply makes it a requirement. These aren't really new things that we're talking about, but it once again just memorializes for the record what is pretty much common practice right now.
So I'd like to ask a question right here, Jennifer.
Okay.
We said before 3 departments were involved. The police department, your office, and planning and development. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Who's involved now? What departments are involved now?
We
you're
got a couple more
fixing
here.
to hit that.
Yeah,
Few more
we're going to hit
slides.
that right
Okay.
now.
Okay. So now we're going to get to the upgrades to the permitting process. The whole point is just to streamline this process so it's less confusing for the citizens and for staff. The current process, of course, involves me, the police department, development services, and we're going to turn that into a one-stop shop where it all goes to David. Of course, the police department is going to assist, but as the city grows, we'll have more in development services and be able to have
people that check off the criminal part and may not have to use the police. But mostly it's going to be handled under David's department.
Well, one of the issues was, just as you said, Ron, was like the criminal history, we'll still be requiring that.
Correct.
But now the staff will reach out and work with the police department to obtain that instead of the old system we had where we made the person go down to the police department and gather all that information. So they're gonna, the same information basically is gonna be obtained, but
Right.
we're gonna just do that through the one development services department now.
Correct. So the next slide, it's development services. They'll be in charge of reviewing the permit. It was one of those things where it was like, I'm having to reach out to development services, like, I don't know what setbacks are, that's not my, like, David, what's that? You know, so it just makes sense, so. David can't wait to get started, so. And then the standards will be enhanced, without, real adverse impact, and just kind of clarifies existing policies. And then currently all safety requirements are maintained through this permitting process. And so I created a little flow chart because everyone loves flow charts. So how do I get one? I want to sell some burgers. So I would submit an application. The review time would be 10 days. And then you would pay the permit fee to someone in development services. And then development services will then go around and review it and make sure that everything's in, that everything's submitted correctly and all the documents are needed. And then if development services says we need some revisions, then they would work with that permittee requester. And then you would then submit that again, and then approval or denial of the permit would take place. Again, development services is going to be the streamlined department that'll handle this. It'll be much easier because I can't tell you how many times where I've gotten phone calls of, hey, I've got this person wanting the permit. Well, do they have this and this? And it's just like constant back and forth, and it's been kind of hectic. And so I think everyone who deals or who needs a permit within the city would appreciate this streamlined process because it's way simpler going to one department versus going to police, city secretary, and development services. So that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope this helps.
Just want to clarify 2 points that are a direct result of feedback that I've received from council members who've talked to frustrated citizens in the past is, one, by memorializing for the record the items we said before about being requirements, and then we'll be able to post that on the website and the ordinance will be available to people. So that's one complaint we've had, that there's no source for them to go to say, here's all the things I have to do because of the involvement of 3 different departments. And then the review time of 10 business days is not something we're putting the stop clock on ourselves because I know the mayor and Jessica both have had those complaints in the past that they've waited much longer than 10 days to get a response from us. So we're including that as the requirement as well. So we'll be making that commitment to get a quick turnaround on these as well. But it is, as Jennifer said, it's historical. We can't ever figure out exactly why the city secretary was involved in it to begin with, other than that probably dates back to the days when the city secretary was almost the chief executive. But I don't think this will be it's only an improvement in the process. There's no extra requirements being placed on current permittees or future permittees, and I think it's a good effort by the staff to come together to come up with this process that not only works better for the citizens, but it'll work better for us as well. So with that, yeah, we'd be glad to answer any questions.
Will this be where everybody's going to have to go through the permitting process online just like the other stuff?
David, you want to speak to that?
Yes, as soon as we can get stuff incorporated over to our permitting system. Our goal in development services is to have everything under the permitting system where it's online.
And we're gonna make this, easier, easier, because it sucks.
Yes.
It totally is bad.
Centralizing it and assigning it to a department and providing these processes the way it is, it will make it easier.
Because I just had to help somebody, and I got lost in it, so it needs to be, if we're sending a citizen to your department,
Yes.
and then I have to know that they're gonna get all the help they need to successfully complete the transaction.
They will get the help that they need. Yes.
That, you know, we're issuing hundreds of permits every week. now
Yes, I do, but
through
there
that
are some people
system.
that need help.
All right, I didn't, that, for issuing 100 of permits through this system, the system is working for most.
That's right, so, but if you've got people who don't have internet, if you have people who are,
There are free computers available for them right here in this building.
except when they got sent here, they were closed.
And
Well,
So what are we gonna
in,
do?
in any case,
you
in
can't
any
be
case, the
all
whole
things to
objective,
all people all the time.
the
Our
whole
is to
objective
do
here
the
was to make
most.
it easier for someone to apply for, in this case, the permits required for a peddler under the definition. So we sent it back 2 or 3 times because we wanted more clearance. And I think that y'all did a very good job. I'm very proud of the staff for not only the presentation, but taking the whole idea of we need to streamline it so that somebody can come in and get the stuff done in a reasonable amount of time. And it looks like, now we'll see how it works, but it looks like to me that y'all have set the process in place, and now we'll just check and see how it works, I guess, if we in fact pass this ordinance.
That's right.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Does this impact any of our festival vendors? Are they included in this?
A lot of our festival vendors are usually a special organization or governmental related. A lot of that would be exempt.
There are a lot of our vendors at Hogeye that aren't. They're just
Oh,
independent.
that wouldn't include Hogeye, vendors for Hogeye, would it? Oh, vendors, not the ones selling arts and
food
crafts, but you're
vendors.
talking about the food
The
vendors,
food
yes.
vendors,
Okay. I see.
The Hogeye process would be done by the city does that, so they would be, a lot of these permitting requirements would be simplified or exempted for them because it's under the auspices of certain organizations.
Don't get Amy all worked up.
I'm
This is
trying
not gonna have
not.
any, this will have no impact on Hogeye. And I would presume we're gonna deal with sesquicentennial events just like we do Hogeye, so.
Okay.
Vendors have to have health permits and all that, no matter who they are, but.
Because I hope at some point in time that Elgin does have a food park, a food truck park, because downtown could use that. Yeah. So. Okay, council, we have any questions or comments? Yes, Councilman Rose.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the flow chart, but I'm a little confused about the flow chart. So is the whole process 10 days, or is it 10 days and then you pay the permit fee and then
Whole process.
the whole process? Okay.
Process.
Well, meaning you'll get a response in 10 days.
Okay.
The blue square there at the bottom, sometimes that can delay.
Right.
If that always happens with permits, we review them and we give you feedback about corrective action you need to take. Now, if you wait a month
Right.
to respond to us, then it's going to take, but the 10 days means you'll get a response, you'll get either approval or a request for more information in 10 days.
So the clock stops in that blue box?
If the staff says you need to submit, your application is incomplete.
Right.
It stops there. You can jump from the pink box to the final if you've done it right from the beginning.
Right.
But that's the only way that 10 days would be affected, is if we're asking for the applicant to have more information. Yeah, then the clock pauses there until you resubmit.
And you don't pay the permit fee with the application?
Yes, you have to pay that.
Okay, I was just,
Yeah,
you
no.
know, I was like, okay, is this a 10
No,
days, they review and then come back and
Yeah.
gotta go down to City Hall to pay.
Yeah, but I think that probably illustrates a point that, again, from the staff perspective too, we're committed to, as you know, we've set our fee structure this way, that it's important for us that citizens know that all kinds of business development, other than EDC things we do to recruit people, we try to make sure that business development, housing development pays for itself that way, so that current taxpayers aren't supplementing the cost. So yeah, you'd have, if you want us to spend time reviewing,
That's what I thought.
you got to pay your fee up front.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I got to ask for a second or what?
No, you get it.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Councilmember Ibis, seconded by Councilmember Dennis to approve item number 5 under new business as read and discussed. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Ibis.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes?
Callahan, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Let's go to our last item under new business. Appointment, reappointment of members to various city commissions, boards, and/or committees, including the Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustments, Library Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors, Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Board of Directors, Historic Review Board, Main Street Board of Directors, and Building Standards Commission. So, Mr. Mattis?
Thanks, Mayor. I can just run through some quick numbers for the good of the order. This is obviously an item we've been discussing for the last couple of months, and is a routine thing we do every January now by council ordinance. We've got, one thing I want to clarify is we have 24 positions on the various boards, commissions, or committees that terms have expired, and by definition, all of those seats are or will become vacant. So it's semantics, but I think at times we've confused that vacancies are, all 24 of those positions are available for new appointments. But traditionally, we've council, at least in the time I've been here, has always tried to recognize folks that wanted to continue to serve, and out of necessity most of that time, because we just haven't had the response we needed, and just in the few years I've been here, I remember the council having to go out and find somebody just to have enough people on those committees. So typically, we've been happy to have people willing to continue to serve, but we're in a little bit different situation now. So we've got 24 of those terms that are expiring. And 9 of the 9 boards all have at least one vacancy or term that's expiring. The Board of Adjustment, Historic Review Board, and the EDC Board each have 3 terms that are expiring. And the city's received 46 applications. Now, I want to clarify that as well. That doesn't mean 46 different people. That means some people have applied and applied for numerous positions. So every position they've applied for, we're counting that in the 46. But of the 24 positions that are vacant, we've had 22 of those people in those positions today asked that they be reappointed to those positions. So that's where a little bit of the confusion of the 2 vacancies. If council decides to reappoint all of those existing members, then the net result is there's only 2 vacancies. But technically speaking, there's 24 seats that the council will need to make appointments to.
Okay, obviously, you know, and we've all heard the good and the bad, and I personally want to thank every person that's served on these boards and commissions already. Their time is valuable, and I appreciate their effort. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about what we're doing here and why we're doing it, and do we have to do it right now? Let's consider all this stuff. Anybody want to start? Councilmember Vega?
Just to, I mean, we kind of said this earlier, maybe it's time to sort of entertain term limits as one of the options to consider moving ahead for something new, to see how that might provide just opportunity for new blood, so to speak. And I think that for the most part, we have opportunities to talk about what term limits means and how that applies to whether all boards, several boards, whatnot. And I realize that there's probably different guidelines, different things to consider. I would probably rely on staff to help us understand something like that. Is that a broad sweep, or is that just applied to certain boards, certain commissions?
Okay. Anybody else?
I think Councilmember Vega and myself are the only two. We had nothing, and then we came up with what's in your packet about 7 years ago. Tom brought that forward. We had that committee then, and that was the bare minimum, but we got it done. And I think we're at a point now where we need to go back and we need to fix it and do like Councilmember Vega said. I feel like we're put in a place to put somebody there, and we have no idea if they've missed all but one meeting all year long. We don't get any of that information. Maybe the board chair has some way in to say, these people come, these people don't come, because we have no way of knowing that unless we go to every one of all the different board meetings as well. So I feel like we're kind of, where it made sense at the time, and when we set up the original skeleton, I think we've grown, and we need to be more mature now about it.
So that's a great point. And I also was thinking in the same way. I personally would like to see us table this until February. And not just table it. What I want is the city secretary and the city manager and myself maybe to get together and send an email out to every chairman of every board and commission and ask them to give us information within a week or within 10 days maybe. I want to know what they did. Like, I want to know their members' attendance records. I want to know their members' participation. Was it somebody that just went to every meeting but never said anything? Was it somebody that only made 2 meetings the whole year, just like you mentioned earlier? Because what Tom brought up, the fact that there's 24 vacancies, not 2, there's 24. And again, I started this whole thing with, I want to thank everyone on the board who has already served, because they have given. But what we want to make sure is they're viable members of that board, not just members in name only. So I don't know what you guys think about it, and I want to hear what you think about it, but I would like to put the onus on the chair of each committee and board and have them report to us within a reasonable amount of time that, yes, these are the members, this is how often we met, this is how often this person made the meeting and this person made the meeting, and they did offer participation, or they were basically in name only present.
I'd like to also just comment too that that's definitely something that I think most of us would support, just because I think that's important. I think it's probably up to a chair to ensure there is fidelity in the guidelines, the bylaws, whatever may exist for each board. I mean, to stay short, I know that some members on some of these boards have been on boards 10 years, 15 years. I mean, can you imagine? And certainly in those opportunities or those situations, there may be reasons, but that's maybe also something to look at, just considering the various citizens that are willing to not only engage, but really just to be part of. I think it's new voice, new ideas. And the only other thing I'll just add to assessing kind of the outlook is that, a couple of these boards no longer part of them, but I personally kind of witnessed situations where questions were asked, well, so-and-so has not attended. Have you approached the person, or have you discussed, reiterated what the guidelines are? And oftentimes it was, well, no, not really. But again, just ensuring that the leader of the particular group or the chair ensures fidelity where it's appropriate.
Councilmember Callahan?
Life is a constant process of change. In order to keep these boards from getting stagnant, I think new ideas and new blood is probably a really good idea.
Okay,
But
thank you.
again, we don't have enough information to make a decision. We don't know enough about what's taking place. So I agree with you completely.
Okay. Councilmember Roberts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd love to know more about, each of the boards and seeing the boards do report to council. I think it would be helpful if, seeing there's 9 boards, if we could, ask for, a representative to come to one of the meetings.
Which is the way it used to be. A board used to used to give a presentation to the council when I was on the council once a quarter. Yeah.
Because I
And so
think that
every
would be
meeting had a
helpful.
different board. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to think about, obviously. Term limits, maybe presentations to the council, maybe certainly asking for more information from the chairs.
So, Mayor, I'd just add that, yeah, I agree with what's been said. I know that there's nowhere in those guidelines that says that, a board assignment is a lifetime appointment. So, there's that, but, in light of the fact that we don't have term limits in place, we have the system that we have in place. And we're kind of against, well, we should be appointing this month, but tabling it, I'm okay with that. I just don't know that we have time to vet a whole new process that includes term limits between now and February, so that we can then, in turn, because people are under the assumption that they're going to continue to serve. But having the conversation with the chairs or the staff leaders of these boards, I think is an excellent, place to start. And so, I think, we probably need to do that. And then beyond that, look at rewriting the charter for the.
Yes, Councilmember
Maybe
Roberts.
what's realistic by February is whether we look at the guidelines that, or the process that exists now. As Sue was saying, it was sort of drafted and looked at again, definitely a number of years ago, but I think we need to understand what a new process would look like before we can even begin to start to appoint or make decisions about the various boards. So I don't know how long, Tom, we were able to wait, with making these appointments per what currently exists. But if you think of just realistically what's possible, it may be February when we simply just look at an updated process or recommendations made to council to consider as we move ahead.
Yeah, I just add a couple things as Sue and Jessica both said, because I can't believe I'm starting to be an old timer with you guys on here already, but when we started this process, back then, there was no process, and every committee was on different, all terms were all different, the renewal dates, when the appointments, so the whole objective at that time was to create some uniformity in how that process worked, and that's the city ordinance that the council adopted and established that. And so, as Sue said, I think it's a natural part of our growth and evolving that it'd be appropriate that here, 5 years later, is probably the right time to review that ordinance. The main part about this is, I would say, that this is exclusively driven by an ordinance that's adopted by the council, so the whole process is completely discretionary on the council's part. So the appropriate way to talk about any of those changes, I think we provided before, but just get you all a copy of that ordinance. And if we want to make amendments to that, that'd be the way to do it. I would say technically, legally, however, it's right to say that if this stretches out past February or so, then we have quorum issues about who's on the new board and who's not if we're going to make changes. So. But I would just say, for the record, technically speaking, legally speaking, the individuals in these positions continue to lawfully serve, even though their term is expired, until such point as council makes a new appointment. So technically speaking, who's ever on the board now can continue to meet until you make a decision about that moving forward. And one other thing I guess I would throw in the mix that Ron and I were just talking about before the meeting of when we were trying to start a uniform time frame, January 1st seemed to be the logical time, but we've gone through this 2 or 3 times now, and I just think, the first meeting right after the holidays is just a tough thing for the council or everybody to take on. So thinking about maybe we make that official date, change it to February or something might be more effective for us too, but as long as we kept it that way. But yeah, I think we can, I'm saying for the month of January, that there aren't any specific problems this creates by us waiting to have more conversation about it.
It took us 2 months the first time we did it, too.
Yeah.
It's the exact
I
same,
think
well, they
that's-
can still vote.
So it won't affect business, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm going to take a little more time on this.
I think one thing that we need to consider in this is that on some of these boards, that staff is kind of grooming particular people to step into the board.
Excuse me.
Well,
You know,
Well, I just want to say that again for the new members. Part of the issue before that was discussed when we brought this up, it was expressed at that time by some members of the council, it was felt that the staff had too much influence
Okay.
over recommending people. So that's why this is one thing we've stepped back from. And that's really what the ordinance says. It's for the council to decide and make those appointments. And so we certainly have opinions if somebody wants to solicit those, but that's why we're keeping everything, the staff on this particular thing is we're staying at arm's length. And it really is a council decision to make in these
Right.
cases, so.
Yeah, we've also had, just quickly, sorry to interrupt, just while I'm thinking about it, and I think this would be part of the process in assessing the qualifications. We've had that situation where one of the qualifications is for the applicant to live in the city limits, within the city limits, and I think that's where in the past we've seen where maybe those that were grandfathered in just went ahead and stayed even though they're not in the city limits, or by name only kept them on a board. But again, those qualifications, I think, probably need to have a closer look, and really with the understanding that they're in place for a reason. And so any future considerations, you'd want to try to stick as closely as possible to the qualifications. And the month of May, if you think about, may be a good month to appoint or reappoint, since typically that's potentially a changing of the guard of council. So that might be a time too to just do a complete look at everything that is up for some sort of appointment or reappointment, something to think about.
So in the meantime, staff will send the email in conjunction with myself to all the chairs, asking for the information that we discussed earlier. Is that okay? Everybody okay with that?
Do you want me to make a motion to table?
I didn't hear you.
Do we need to or not?
You can, yeah, sure.
You can what?
Make a motion to table.
Oh.
It's probably a good idea.
Are we ready to do that? Everybody feels ready to do that? Okay. Do I hear a motion to table item number 6 under new business? Okay. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Callahan. We'll start the vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher to
Frazier,
table
yes.
item number 6 under new business.
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes?
Gibson, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council. And Tom, we'll get on.
Okay.
We will not be going into executive session tonight. Announcements. Do we have any announcements, council?
I just want to thank everybody for being here for the 150th kickoff celebration this evening, and I want to encourage the city council to each take about 10 of those signs and take them out into your ward and with permission. And there's kind of information in one of the emails that we got about what you need to watch for guidelines. Don't put it in the right of way, make sure you have permission, put it in the yard and those sort of things. But that's why we can get it scattered into all of the wards except for Ward 2 now, I guess, but But, so take signs and the frames and if you will,
Councilmember Dennis, do we have plenty of signs?
we have oodles of signs.
Okay,
If
so
we run out there,
can the audience
Elgin has
take some?
another 100.
Can the
Yes.
audience take some home if they wish?
Certainly, certainly,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, feel free. We have those.
Okay.
We also have the window decals and those sort of things available as well.
Okay.
MLK Walk on the 17th
MLK Walk on January 17th?
Bastrop.
I'm sorry?
in Bastrop.
In Bastrop, Texas, yes. Any other announcements? Council, do we have any other business to discuss?
I just have one quick thing. I was just wondering, about this last and the one about the landscape. It seems like the council meetings would be a little more efficient if we followed Robert's rules as far as motions, because especially with the landscaping, no motion was made. I was kind of confused as to what we were really discussing, seeing we really didn't have a motion. So just something.
No motion was made, Councilmember Ibis, on which one?
Well, normally with Robert's rules, you make a motion and a second, and then you debate. For the landscaping, it didn't seem like anybody really wanted to make a motion, and we were just debating.
I made the motion.
Right, no, after the fact, but, normally with Robert's rules, you make the motion first. I was just thinking it may make for a little more.
That's one way to do it, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, we'll look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other business to discuss, council? If not, I adjourn this meeting at 8:16 PM.